Alright. Hopefully, finally, bi'idhnillah. Gonna see if this is working now. God knows. Right, I take it is. I take it is working. Are we live? Lahda, lahda, lahda. Alright, we are live, people. We are live. Just gonna write this here. Un momento, right there. Almost done. Alright, we're live. We're live, people. إن الحمد لله وكفاه والصلاة والسلام على رسوله المصطفى وعلى عباده الذين ارتضى ومن بهداهم اهتدى وبآثار أهل المدينة اقتفى وبعد فالسلام الله على القوم أهلا وسهلا بكم خوانين لايتس بخير راغلة خوش آمدید. Bienvenidos a todos and people, swagatam, swagatam. Alright. It's the Punisher t-shirt. Hell yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Zozan, alright. Abu Zahra, ahlan wa sahlan bikum, ahlan wa sahlan. Let me just make sure my drinks are all ready. Riz, Omar, Khalid Tai, ahlan wa sahlan. So, people, let's get started. First of all, Khalid Tai, Imran Khan from NYC. Alright, doing it. Right, so, Nafiz, Murad, ahlan wa sahlan bikum. It's awesome to see all of you online, people. Rochdale Sharif is being represented by Abbas. Is that you? Right, so people, ahlan wa sahlan. First of all, big shukran, thanks to Khalid Tai, who'd invited us over this just this weekend gone. So it was a pleasure visiting you in Cheltenham. Right, and Imam Hassan and the crew there as well. So absolute love and respect for that. Shukran. It was great, really meeting all the guys, having a chat and discussion. Jabbar, ahlan wa sahlan. Muhammad Rashid. Right, people, what have we got going on? What's been going on this week, man? What's going on, folks? Look at that. Nav is on the line. Is that you, Abu Mu'adh? Doing it. Huddersfield, Farid, Peters. Alright, so, people, brought some tea as well this time. I thought, look at that. That's the best way, I'm telling you. If you want to practice your ha in the Arabic language, you gotta just kind of sip on some tea and just go Alright, so what's going down, people? What's that? Can you tell the story of the conversation? Always believe the med? The med? Huh? The meds? How did you know about the meds? Alright, Shaban is in the house. Ahlan wa sahlan. People, so what's going on? First of all, before I forget, since I've got the Ayatollah Al-Siyahri is in the house. People, since I've got the Punisher thing on, a big shukran going out to Dean Al-Maliki, right, for this gadget right there. Can you see that skull, people? Shukran for that, man. Muchas gracias. Right, that's people. Dean Al-Maliki, who's I've been blessed with a baby boy. Barakallahu fihi wa fihim wa hayyahum Allahu jami'an, and who's gone to the extent, or the family have gone to the extent, that they've been inspired and named the child Layth in aspiration. Ya salam. I'm deeply touched, deeply touched. There's the legend poet Ahmed Faraz, who says, what more can you ask for Faraz? That he says, the poem has slipped my mind. Damn, it slipped my mind. I'll have to get it. It'll come to me. But he says that that mothers have named their children after you. That what more love can you ask for? So shukran. It's an honor, and it is an awesome name, Layth, I have to say. All right. Let's just hope he doesn't grow up to be quite a deviant. Right, so people, what else is going on? All right. ¿Qué está pasando, mi gente? ¿Qué está pasando? What's going down? Are the hadith regarding the day of resurrection true? Sun above the head. Andalusi tried to refute you again. Deborah, K, Omar, Ahlan wa Sahlan, Syed, the full talk. I don't know what that's referring to. So, yes, first of all, I believe Abdullah Al Andalusi, aka Vasco da Gama, he tried to make a comeback, people. He tried it. Pretty lousy, unsuccessful comeback, if you're asking me, but I mean, he tried. So I'm just gonna try to bring up some of the questions as well. So yeah, he basically said something about, oh, Mufti Abu Layth, did answer my question. And he said something along the lines of, yeah, he asked me if I studied, he asked me if I studied knowledge, and yeah, so what, innit? Well, you see, it's a bit like this. If you haven't studied, you can just sit yourself right back down. Because, let alone, we can discuss afterwards whether your opinion is worth much. We can look at that afterwards. First of all, we have to decide, can you even sit at the table? And this one, not nice, you know, this one unqualified, you know. So all we're asking for only is qualification only. So you just have to introduce yourself as myself, Vasco da Gama, Alim studies only, and then you can sit at the table and we can discuss. But because you've not qualified from any, and you've not even studied Islam, I mean, you don't even understand the Arabic language, for God's sake. Which means that you've not for once in your life ever read the Quran with understanding. Therefore, you can immediately be discounted. Your services can be disposed of as far as being an Islamic savior is concerned. So, yeah. So I hope that helps. Alright, so... And that's way above his pay grade. Way above his pay grade. And you know what really makes these people burn? Is you see, because they know they are speaking to, at the end of the day, a Mufti. They're like, ooh, well, tough. I am a Mufti, and what? So my point is that, look, yes, I may have a different style to me, but Baba, I is qualified. So sit your unqualified beep back down and learn. अभी तो आपके खेलने कूदने के दिन है. Munna na. Sit down. Siéntete. Right, so sit yourself back down. Right, people, what else is going on? Samir Ahmed is saying, are you for real? En serio, hermano? Right, claro que sí. Of course, I'm for real. Right, so let's take... Right, so what are we looking at? What's going on, people? What's going on? I made some notes. Some people had asked some questions. You know, with all these things going on, I thought, right on that note, there's part 2 of the interview I'd done with Syed Riza, which is on their YouTube channel. That was some of the Shia representatives that we met up. I think maybe in what was an unprecedented dialogue, definitely I think within the UK, if not the English-speaking world. I can't say about the entire world, but definitely within the UK, what was an unprecedented sit-down, a very relaxed and casual, friendly kind of dialogue we'd had. So part 2 of that is out on their channel. I think it's called Bay'atul Ghadir. That's their channel. We should be uploading it on ours as well, and on Facebook in perhaps tomorrow or the day after. So do check that out. And in that segment or that section, we discuss takfir, which is the phenomenon of calling somebody a kafir, and what is that all about? And you know, why is this? What is going on with this takfir? Because it is a big deal, people, and there's a lot of people that are what I define in the video as well, trigger happy. Kafir, kafir, right? So they just like walk into a room and they just kafir. And I'm mentioning that it's like, you know, like Bruce Willis jumping through. They go kafir. This is what is going on, people. This is what is going on. People are trigger happy. They are. I've got no words to describe them. That's what they are when it comes to declaring people kafir. And I don't see the craze in this. In fact, is there any updates with the debate regarding? I don't know who that's talking about. Right. So coming back to this, you know, because. So I get some YouTube prompts. I don't know if prompt is the right word, but suggestions. Like, why don't you watch this video? You know, and YouTube starts giving you those suggestions. When YouTube starts telling you that your manhaj is a bit off and you're a bit of a deviant. I'm like, YouTube? Abbi? Even you? So YouTube starts, it was giving me a suggestion to watch a video clip of a debate between some of these brothers from the Shia community and some of these brothers from the, there's this brother from Birmingham. I don't know exactly what he is. I think it said on the Deobandi, although he may have been Deobandi or Salafi, I don't know. But a brother, so there's that guy and there's Syed Riza, and they're having this debate. I can't remember the brother's name, to be honest with you. I think they call him Haji, right? So, nevertheless, so this came up on my YouTube feed. So I ended up watching it. I was like, what the hell? Let's watch it. You know, when you take that time out from watching regular Netflix and all those other TV series, and you think, what the hell? Let's do something Islamic for once. So anyway, so I started watching this this debate. And to be fair, they began, like, I don't know what the debate was about, but until they get into it. So they began very politely, and I was like, I like this, I like what's going on, you know, very good kind of discussion. There was like, you know, hey, this is very courteous, mashallah, shall we go? You know, there was some courtesy, especially around the beginning, and I thought, wow, I like the sound of this. Then in between, it got a bit, you know, voices and no, and this is the problem with these debates. It's all about trying to just put somebody down, and I think I was, to be fair, if I was going to be really as fair as I possibly could, I felt that in that discussion, that is, oh, by the way, sorry, the debate was then about, they termed the debate, it was about, we need to call people kafir. It was about the obligation to call people kafir who have had some deviant views regarding the Quran. Now, I agree with the concept, and I think everybody in this discussion that I watched seemed to agree with the concept that the Quran the Quran is complete, it is preserved, and anybody who goes against that from a Muslim perspective is a deviant view. They all agreed with that. However, the Sunni, or you see, to say Sunni, I feel is not right, because I think Sunni is so broad. So okay, so this brother, I think his name is Haji, or that's what he's referred to. His point was the Shia, they need to declare people kafir who have had any deviant views. And the Shia, who also agreed with the premise that the Quran is preserved and to go against that is deviant, said that, look, if anybody disagreed with that historically, they did so because of the evidence. They were wrong categorically. However, we refrain from calling them a kafir. And so this brother was saying, no, you must call them a kafir. And he was saying, well, no, because then even you in your Sunni books have views that the Quran has been distorted. And so this was the nature of the debate. And I was like, what the hell did I just watch? Because in all honesty, look, these things, if I watched that debate and I felt that in that particular discussion, the Shia brothers seem to have really, they kind of, I would say that they you can't really say win or lose, but they seem to have had the upper hand, which was very clear, because the points they were making, obviously this brother Haji was dropping himself in it repeatedly, and he was kind of saying certain things like, because you see, this is the problem. We have hadith in which, like in Bukhari and Muslim, where there's claims that the Quran, there was more to the Quran and it's today missing. Now this brings us right back to my kind of dialogue in saying we need to start dismissing some of those hadith. Now, because that was exactly that Syed Riza's point, that look, you have these hadith yourself where you're saying Umar radiallahu anhu, Aisha radiallahu anha are saying that there was more to the Quran than there is today. So that is then, how do you answer that? And so, exactly, and so it ended up, and there were a lot of voices raised and stuff like this, but one thing I definitely took away from that discussion, apart from I really don't like watching these discussions, so next time I'm not going to listen to YouTube. Apart from that, the other thing I took away from this was that this is a real poor kind of representation of Islam. I don't think these, and I can understand naturally why Syed Riza was saying that, look, like last time he met me, that people are misrepresenting the Shia thing, and therefore we have to go and represent ourselves in the park. And I can understand that, but I'm just saying what's going on in that Hyde Park or Speaker's Corner or whatever it is just perceptibly horrible. I mean, it's nauseating. To watch it is, it's just noise, for God's sake. Honestly. And there's this other guy called, I think his name is Tan or something. He's some kind of Oriental. I don't know whether he's Chinese or something. But this guy, oh my God, YouTube brought up something for me to watch. This is just because I watched a few clips from Hyde Park. Now YouTube keeps showing me. And this guy's just going on making racist comments, making this, F Islam, F black people, F Chinese people, F Indians, F this, F that. And this is what his speech is. I don't know. That's why I was like, what the hell has become of the world, man? What is like, and then people are saying, yeah, but that's free speech. And then people are saying, I don't know. And then he's going on off about Ali Dawa saying, well, this is a response to Ali. I don't know what that, I don't know. I don't follow that. So I don't know what he was responding to. But this is what it produces. Right, Tan, somebody said, is Chinese. Yep. Right, I thought he was Chinese because he was mocking the Chinese quite a bit. So I thought when people often do that, you're usually from that kind of ethnicity to do that. I just felt that, wow. Like, wallahi, just watching that, it's horrible, man. I'm so glad I don't have to physically ever experience these things. You can just switch it off with a button, because this is not, I mean, this is not what religion or human dialogue is about. So this is, and the Muslims, I think, overall, are equally appalling. I mean, they're not kind of swearing like that, to be fair. Generally, they're not. But they're so at each other's throats. Like, kafir, kafir, kafir. Deviant, 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 deviant. For God's sake, what has become of this deen? What has become of this deen? Honestly, I do not know, man. All I know is it's horrible to watch. It's just noise, man. It's noise. Horrible noise. Ya salam. That is nothing of the message of the Messenger of Allah. I mean, let's pause that, people. Let me show you the message of the Messenger of Allah. He came to Medina, and people asked him, we should preach. We should preach. They said to the Prophet, we should preach. What should we do? Tell us what to do. Should I stand on that, I don't know, mount or that hill or this marketplace? Should I call to Allah? Should I, ya, aslimu, bow, submit to God? What should I do? How should we preach? And the Prophet ﷺ said, he said to them, he said, أطعموا الطعام. Why don't you go around, give people food to eat? Wow. Afshu salam. Why don't you go around spreading peace? A nice word. Ala man, to people we know, ala man arafta, wa man lam ta'arif. To those you know, those you don't know. Say a nice word to them. How are you? Give them something to eat. This was the message of our Prophet. And people, they flock to the religion. Because actions speak louder than words, people. And that is what they saw. They saw, wow. The Prophet said in a hadith, he said, Tahado. I tell you what, why don't you go around giving gifts to each other? Give gifts to each other. Gift. I'm not saying the brother who gave me, but that is, like, this is an example. Give a gift. Tahabbo. You will start to find uncontrollably love in your heart for those people. It's true, wallahi, you'll be like, you just can't, you're like, wow, see, a kind word, a kind act. That is all this deen is really about. And what did the Prophet say? Tadkhulul Jannah bisalam. See, feed people, spread peace, you will enter Jannah with peace. That was it. And all this noise and this and that, and I don't know. I mean, that's my thoughts. That look, a kind thing is so. That's all people want to know. I think we are generally society, Western society, is in a post-religious world. They're not about. They are interested in God, I guess, but in institutionalized religion, it's over in this part of the world. So we need to start recognizing that, honestly. And I think sometimes this, I'll tell you something. This one day, let me share an incident. This one day I came back from one of my early, as the sun rises, it's like with darkness we rise, isn't it? And so as the sun rises, I was back home after a gym session, and I was totally out of it. And sometimes I'm so out of it, I park the car and I just crash out. Honestly, before I know it, I've just fallen asleep for a few minutes and I wake up and got out of my car, and unbeknownst to me, I didn't realize, but my wallet had fallen out and it just fallen on the road. So I was outside my house and it just fallen, and I just picked my stuff and my bag and just walked right inside my house. And it must have been something like 7 in the morning or something. And a little while later, I just got this, knock on the door. And so, I didn't know the person. So there was some kind of a van, some kind of a construction van or something. So I came down and opened the door, and I was like, how can I help you? And he said, it's just, he said, your wallet. And I thought, what? And then I thought, bloody hell, that is my wallet. I was like, and he said, it was on the road. I was driving past, and he said, I just stopped and I saw it. And I honestly, this is a non-Muslim person. And I said to him, I was just dumbfounded. I was lost for words. I said to him, look, let me give you I wanted to give him something as a reward. And he wouldn't take it. And he said to me, these were his words. He said, look, don't be silly, man. I said, look, let me give you something. I wanted to pay him something. I just felt like, oh my God, I can't believe that and he said, no. He said, look, don't be silly. He said, I live on this road, we're neighbours. I mean, he lives several houses right at the bottom of the street. To be honest with you, I had no idea. But I was so touched by his act of generosity. The fact that he could have just picked that up, he could have just gone off with it, taken whatever was inside, or done it, or he didn't have to stop and get out. But this, to me, was the true embodiment of our teachings of Islam. So I thought I'd just share that, people. But yeah, this is something, man. But we're so lost in, you must call so and so a kafir. Man, it's hilarious. Do you believe in a mujaddid? Has to. I'm not sure what that means. Right, so what else is going on, people? What else is going on? I made some notes of some things to cover. Right, I had a question from Sheikh Abid. Now, Sheikh is his name. That actually is his name. Sometimes I've had people say, is Mufti your name? But this is the brother's name. He's been in touch with me for a while. He's from Dhaka, Bangladesh. And he was telling me about a phenomenon over there that's actually quite rampant. And I had no idea how widespread this issue is, but he was telling me that in Dhaka, Bangladesh, the Salafis have made a huge, big deal about we are allowed to drink camel urine, and by extension, cow urine. So I don't know what's going on in Bangladesh, people, right? But Sheikh Abid from Dhaka, who's in touch with me regularly, has told me that. So people in Bangladesh, if you are watching this in Dhaka, please stop obsessing over camel urine, for God's sake. And do not listen to these idiots that are telling you to drink camel urine or cow urine. Okay, please cling on to your sanity, cling on to your madhab. You do not need to listen to these Salafis. That hadith is problematic. I have discussed that in a prior hadith, in a prior session. Imam Bukhari does, it is in Sahih Bukhari. It's also, the other version of it is in Sahih Bukhari that does not mention it. And the whole hadith not to mention is problematic. So that's what I would just say. So if you are there, please stop obsessing with camel or cow urine, for God's sake. There's plenty of other things. Leave these fetishes, not nice, you know. Right, trust me, there's no medication. That's not medication, people. That's not what that's not what they mean in getting one of your daily fives. That's not what they're talking about. So so people, lay off lay off those showers, but do shower. So stay away. No. Right, so what else have we got going on, people? What else have we got going on? I've had somebody asking me about some poetry, and I'll speak a bit about that in a moment. Let's take some questions. What if you're dying from thirst in the middle of the desert? Mufti, what are your thoughts on Surah 3, verse 64? I love it. When people think you're like, they so overestimate you. Oh, wait there. Surah 3, verse 64. Oh. Come on, man. I wish I was like that. But I'm not. A pint of camel, right, okay. So lay off that, people, lay off that. What else is going on? Let's take some of these questions. Who is the most superior after the Prophet? Do these questions really matter? Seriously, just for a moment one day, just sit down and just just look at yourself in the mirror. Just say, so who is the most superior after the... And your reflection, sit there for a little while, and then your reflection is probably going to jump out and slap you on across. In all honesty, what on earth are we on about? Look, people are great people. Okay, there's the Salaf, the true companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam were great people. To us, from an Islamic perspective, the best of people. From an Islamic perspective. And I mean by that the true companions. I don't mean by that... You see, I take the kind of definition that early muhaddithin take, that early scholars and masters of hadith took, that a companion of the Prophet was somebody that was a true companion. Not just somebody who ever just met him. To me, that person isn't really a companion. Although I know later, much later, scholars like Ibn Hajar say no, even if they briefly, for a second, came past the Prophet, they therefore are considered a companion of the Prophet. To me, that's sounds very nice, and I'm sure they were good people, but that's not a companion. It's like saying to somebody, I give you an example, it's like saying, imagine, I've said this in the past, like imagine you, I don't know, in the future, you pass away, and somebody comes and says to your family, yes, and they ask them, were you his friend? Or, were you his friend? And they say, well, I was his Facebook friend. In all honesty, unless you're a regular and close Facebook friend, then fine, but just having a friend like as an example, I'm maxed out on friends, so that means I must have like 5,000 friends on Facebook. I'm sure 4,800 of them, I've probably got no idea who on earth they are. And maybe by a stretch, 100 to, maybe by stretching it to 200, I may have some idea. But beyond that, I would have no idea who the rest of my Facebook friends are. So that doesn't make them your friend. I mean, sure, they may be good people. It doesn't. You see, the opposite of not being friend is not that they're a bad person. It just, I'm sure that means that they're good people, but it doesn't make them their Facebook. It doesn't make them their real friend. And likewise. And there's a hadith which is actually an interesting hadith that one of the companions was asked, that are the companions, I think it's Abu Tufail that is asked, but I'll double check it, but one of the companions is asked, because he's one of the last companions to pass away. Whether he was a companion, there is some debate as well. Now, but he is asked, or this person is asked, are any of the companions of the Prophet alive today? And he says, as to some people who met the Prophet, then yes. But as to his companions, then no. They have all passed away. So that, you see, showed that even they made a distinction, that people who were truly with the Prophet, Sa'id ibn Musayyib said that they would have at least accompanied him for 1 or 2 years of their life. I wouldn't put a time span on it, but I would just say somebody that was truly a companion. Like, you can just think of yourself, people who are truly your, people who are truly your friends, like friends and companions, as opposed to somebody who ever just met you. So that's the understanding of many early Sunni scholars, and people like Khatib al-Baghdadi speaks about that in his Kifaya, and so that's, and many of the ulama of Medina, and that's the understanding that I'm inclined to. So they were great people, they were the best of people, and the general understanding that the Sunni orthodoxy has is that Abu Bakr is first, and then Umar, and then Uthman, and then Ali radiallahu anhum, and then the Ashra Mubashara, and then the Ashab al-Badr, and these people, and so on, and by extension. But really, these hierarchical structures are just all made up, really. It's just like they were all great people. Somebody may be better from some perspective, and somebody else might be better from a different perspective, and they're all good, they're all amazing. Cool. Do ayat in the Quran abrogate ayat in the Quran? Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Sure. Ayat, I do believe that ayat in the Quran are abrogated, cancelled out. So a good example of that is the tadriji, the gradual abrogation of alcohol and things like this. I do believe so generally that there is this abrogation within the Quran. But let me tell you something that you may not know. I completely condemn this concept. Right, I'm about to go into my condemnation mode. I should have had this active and it could speak. Right, so I completely condemn this concept of saying that there was some of the Quran that disappeared, that its recitation got abrogated. This to me is a ludicrous concept. The Hafiz Ahmad al-Ghumari, one of the Ghumaris has a risala. I've been through it. I'm not sure which of the brothers wrote it now, which of the Umariyin, but that also arguing in light of this, that you see, it is absurd what many of many of our own ulama of Islam have been claiming over the centuries, that there were many parts of the Quran that came and disappeared. Like, so the Quran was much more than the Quran today, but it just disappeared. That is absurd. That is ridiculous. Anybody that says that, I don't think they've actually thought through what they're actually saying. Because that is just, I mean, how could you say that? Because that is an affront to the Quran. That is an attack on the Quran. Okay. To say that the Quran was greater than it is today, but verses disappeared. And the only reason they're doing this is once again because of hadith dogmatism. Because they're stuck with one or two hadith where they've got sayings from certain companions like Umar radiallahu an or Aisha radiallahu anha, or from other people, some other companions. They've got some hadith saying the Quran, there was more in the Quran and we used to read it and today it's missing. Well, mate, those hadith are wrong and false hadith. Full stop. Hadith dogmatism has to stop. Right, so we need to stop all this kind of hadith over Quran approach. We respect the hadith and we embrace the sunnah. There is a distinction between hadith and sunnah, but we accept hadith and we reject hadith. Hadith that clashes with the Quran is rejected. There is no, it cannot be a sahih hadith and clashing with the Quran. That is an absurd concept as far as I'm concerned. Now you can accept that. That's your choice. It's your life. But it's totally absurd to believe that parts of the Quran. So for example, there's a hadith, I believe it's in Ibn Majah, this hadith that Aisha radiallahu anha saying that the Quran, the verse about mothers suckling their young, and it should be done in such a way with a certain number of suckling kind of taking place. And this used to be a verse in the Quran, and she says, and it was written down, and I had it under my pillow, and apparently some goat ate it. This is, and Albani said that the hadith apparently is okay. And I think it's in the Musnad of Ahmad, and it's in, I believe Ibn Hazm brings it as well. But this, you see, this is what I mean. That's absurd. And the goat ate it. I mean, what the hell? This is Sunni scholars saying this. I mean, seriously, what on earth is going on here? And the goat. The goat had nothing else to eat, so it came in and ate a certain verse of the Quran, and now that verse has disappeared. Wah. So this is the kind of ludicrous behavior that we're left with. So we need to clearly recognize that, look, the Quran is complete. Okay. And as to this verse of the Quran, ما ننسخ من آية أو ننسها نأتي بخير منها ومثلها. You know this verse in Surah Baqarah, that whatever we abrogate from a verse, or now nunsi can mean we delay, or it can mean we cause to forget. Now what is this? Or we allowed to forget? What is this referring to? So a lot of these people use this verse to justify that part of the Quran has today gone. And from it are the verses of stoning people to death and God knows what else they want to justify using their disappeared Quran. But the Quran is preserved, people. Nothing of the Quran has disappeared. Anybody teaching this is, you need to seriously, they need to just pause and think, okay, mate. Just think about that. Look, does this even make any sense? Part of the Quran came, it taught us to do something, the Quran disappeared, but the ruling stayed. And then there's other verses in the Quran that are abrogated, but they're still there. I mean, does that even make any sense? Like, so the one about stoning people, that disappeared, but the ruling stayed. So, so I sent you an email, but the one I wanted you to act by, I deleted that email, but I sent you the one that, you know, it's okay, you don't need to act by. Like, what is God doing if that's the message? If the message is God sent a verse about stoning people, he took the verse away but kept the ruling, and then he abrogated other verses but kept them there. Okay, so abrogating verses, one could say for historicity, for history, to understand development, fine, is good. But then why would he take verses away but keep the ruling? I mean, you see, this makes a mockery of this deen. Yeah, so that's my point. So we need to really pull our stuff together, man. We got to stop saying this kind of stuff. It's embarrassing. We're embarrassing. It's like, you're embarrassing us. It's like, Mulvi Sahab, you're embarrassing us now. So, yeah, so that's, it shows God to be very clumsy, exactly. And it shows the Quran to not be preserved. So we need to stop saying this kind of stuff. Okay, yep. So, cool. So I hope that, was I about to say something? Oh, right, sorry. This verse about when that people use this verse that Allah says, whatever we abrogate or we cause to delay. You see, nunsi can mean delay or allow to forget. What is this verse talking about? What is the context? The context is about Bani Israel and the previous and Musa alayhi salam. So whatever Allah abrogates from previous sharia or allows those rulings to have gone and dissipated and forgotten, Allah says we bring better than it. Na'ti bimithliha, that we bring something like it or better than it. And that is this Quran. So people, that is what we're talking about. Okay, so Masoom Rahman says, don't you get headaches for laughing so much? No, I don't. Don't block me for saying this. No, I'm not going to block you for saying that. So, cool. So I hope that makes some sense. What else is going on, people? Let's take some questions that people have submitted. Somebody's constantly asking about Ibn al-Jawzi. Let me answer. Ibn al-Jawzi is a classical Hanbali scholar who I have much respect for. He was not upon the Hanbali kind of aqidah, the theology. He was actually and refuted them. He's actually got some works that are in print where he's critiquing. You see, because Hanbali is two things. Hanbali is in fiqh. Obviously, it's in reference to Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, but it's in fiqh and it's in aqidah. So it's in practice and in belief. So, and although the two overlap, but they are not necessary. So they're not dependent on each other. So you could be a Hanbali in just fiqh or just in aqidah. So like Dhahabi is very Hanbali in aqidah, which is today like the Salafi, Wahhabi kind of aqidah, that very literal, everything is literal about God, which is not the way to kind of believe. But nevertheless, freedoms, you can believe. So, but that's the Hanbali belief structure. So you don't have to be Hanbali in madhab, in fiqh, to have that belief. And then there's the Hanbali fiqh. So Ibn al-Jawzi was Hanbali in fiqh, but he was not like that in aqidah, and he actually refuted the Hanbali aqidah and showed in his work and his interpretation that it was a misrepresentation of Imam Ahmad. So I have huge respect for that. Naturally, I would support those kind of rational, reason-based interpretations, people. Yo, Sid is in the house, people. Sid, can you please explain Israfil and the blowing of the trumpet at the end of time? The blowing of the trumpet at the end of time, in my understanding, is a it's one of two things. It's either symbolic or it's metaphorical. It's one of the two. So maybe that there's some kind of like a kind of bang to kind of explain some kind of explosion, explosive kind of sound, in which case it may be metaphorical, that's what it's kind of giving a metaphor of, or it may be symbolic, that as a kind of symbolism. You know, فَإِذَا نُفِخَ فِي الصُّورِ, and when the trumpet has been blown. Why? Because you see, the way the kings and the kind of majestic people had something that, you know, when something important was about to happen, that they would blow the horn or the trumpet, and people would kind of, what's happened? And this is the kind of the kind of scene that is being constructed in the Quran. That فَإِذَا نُفِخَ فِي الصُّورِ, that, you know, when it has been, when the trumpet has been blown, and when people will be raised, or when the trumpet has been blown, then there will be no kind of affiliations between them, every man for himself. It's a very powerful image that the Quran is drawing, illustrating for us. It's not, in my understanding, a kind of literalism, although many people may take it to be that, but who determines whether it is symbolic or literal? That's a good question Masoom has asked. I think, you see, who determines anything? Who reads the Quran? We do. The Quran is something to be read. You see, I want to point out something today. I was listening to a dialogue, and it got me thinking as well, that it is so true that today the Quran, and not just today, for centuries, the Quran has become a book of tilawa and not a book of qira'ah. It is not a book to read, but a book to simply ritually recite. We need to take a shift and move away from tilawa in its ritual sense to qira'ah, to a book that is read. Quran, the reading, the recitation, iqra. Okay. That this is, and tilawa in itself, what's interesting is tilawa actually meant to follow, to obey. That, you know, what, so you have it generally, it comes in the Quran, that something that yatlu, it follows. وَالْقَمَرِ إِذَا تَلَاهَا, and the moon as it follows, the kind of, you know, the earth or the orbit that it has before the sun. So this is, in essence, we've today become a people that use the Quran just as a ritualistic reading. So we read it and we get a reward. That, you know, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. So alhamdulillah, I've got rewards for reading. But we're not pondering on what the Quran is actually saying. So that, I think we need to have a shift towards that. We also need to have a shift towards the primacy of the Quran. The Quran should always be first and foremost. The Quran should not be compromised by hadith, ever, in my understanding. Yes, the hadith, the sunnah can give some detail to the Quran, unquestionably, as does the living tradition of fiqh, but it should never rule out the Quran. So that's incredibly important. Have Muslims failed in not learning Arabic? Wajid has asked. That's an interesting question. I do believe, I strongly encourage all Muslims to learn the Arabic language. Believe me, it is actually not that hard. Okay, it's not that difficult. You can learn the Arabic language in about 6 months. You can have a good understanding in about 6 months. I think when I studied Arabic first, I must have learnt it within about 5 to 6 months. And then with it up to a year, you can have a good, thorough understanding. You can use things like Bayyina, which is Ustad Noman Ali Khan's, or other things. Dr. Surti's Quranic Arabic, I've always recommended, a great book. And yeah, definitely get into it, people. Start appreciating. Somebody had asked me about poetry. They'd said, you know, can you advise on poetry? Poetry, people, it's like they'd asked me about Arabic, so I said I'll take out a book. You see, I don't do much. I do read Arabic poetry. It's not that I don't. Is it safe for my wife to take a vacation to an Arabic country, being Mexican American? Richard Mexicano. Alright. Hell yeah, hell yeah. Of course, of course. It obviously depends what Arab country. I mean, don't just send her somewhere like Syria or Iraq right now. But I'm sure there's many parts of the Arab world, North Africa, that is, you know, I mean, reasonably stable, very, I mean, an incredible experience you can have out there. Countries like Morocco are amazing to visit. I mean, there's so many. It depends when you say Arab. I mean, there's like almost 30 Arabic speaking countries. I mean, so many countries, but there are many of them that are stable, that are good to visit, that do have a thriving tourism industry. And there's some that are problematic. There's some that are going more, Syria, Raqqa. I mean, you want to stay away from places with ISIS, obviously. I'm sure you'd agree. Iraq. There's places that are unfortunately going through great struggles. Yemen. Saudi Arabia is ruthlessly bombing Yemen. And see, this is another example of where it just shows the tyranny. But it's just paradox. I mean, it's not paradox. It's just so hypocritical, the whole thing. But yeah, so some of these countries you can stay away from, but the rest, there's some great stuff going on there. Go to Bradford, Carlos. He said Arab, not Pakistani. So, right, do you... right, so the question there. So, about the Arabic, first of all, somebody had asked me my favorite kind of poetry. You see, there's so many. In Arabic, the thing is, in Arabic poetry, I love the classical poets, but the problem is their themes are so... Sometimes they've got some amazing kind of one-liners, and amidst their kind of qasaid. And then the latter, then there's people like Mutanabbi, who has some amazing poetry. Abu Nawas, before him, there's people in our recent times, last century. We've got people like Ahmed Shawqi. You have got you know, Khalil Gibran. You've got other, but the problem with modern Arabic poetry is I don't like the way it's kind of all freestyled and off the scales. This I thought I'd show. You can't really see that. There you go. Diwan of Nabigha al-Dhubyani. He was a legend. He's from the Jahiliyyah people, Jahiliyyah times. So when that's pre-Islam. So before Islam, and in fact there's some debate on why he's called Nabigha, which is like a genius or a legend, and a don. Alright. And he was, I gotta say, I am very intrigued by I'm not intrigued, but wowed by Nabigha al-Dhubyani. So I'll give you an example. I'll show you. So these are people who died well before the advent of Islam, although some of the companions did meet these. So it's recorded that Hassan ibn Thabit did meet radiallahu an Nabigha al-Dhubyani. Maybe some of the companions did, but these people generally died well before. So this is part of his diwan that has been... A diwan is a book of poetry that has been preserved. But he has a style that is quite... So it kind of opens up with one describing a people that... he says that... that سألتني عن أناس هلكوا أكل الدهر عليهم وشرب. That, and he has this kind of... almost idiomatic usage that he says, you ask me about a people who have perished. That time ate them, it consumed them. And the way he uses he kind of, a metaphor of it kind of, it ate them and drank them. And this, you got to remember that he's almost pioneering in some ways in his style and usage of the Arabic language. And he has a poem where he's apologized. See, this is one of the things that I don't like. It's usually all about the poetry. I mean, not I don't like, but it's a bit we can't relate to. A lot of their poetry was all about praising certain kings, certain tribes, and seeking sanctuary and all that kind of stuff. So he's apologizing to Nu'man ibn al-Munzir, the famous Arab king, and because he was accused, Nabigha Dhubyani in his time was accused of kind of having betrayed him. So he worried, and so what he did is he in other words, legged it. He was out of there. Time for a sharp exit. So he writes this poem where he says, أتاني أبيت اللعنة أنك لمتني وتلك التي أهتم منها وأنصب. And he says that, it's reached me that you have kind of accused me, and how this is such a tiring thing for him. But he mentions that he has this one line, I'll just quote this line, that he says, حلفت فلم أترك لنفسك ريبة وليس وراء الله للمرء مذهب. Allah. He says, I took an oath, and he says, I left no doubt for you in my oath. وَلَيْسَ وَرَاءَ اللَّهِ لِلْمَرْءِ مَذْهَبُ. That what is left now if my oath rested on God? I mean, what is after God? Like, what more do you want me to say? And that's, and he kind of, he goes on to kind of say to him that لَإِن كُنْتَ قَدْ بُلِّغْتَ عَنِّي خِيَانَةً لَمُبْلِغَكَ الْوَاشِي أَغَشُّ وَأَكْذَبُ. That, like, if somebody comes and kind of has told you I've betrayed them, in many ways that person himself is a kind of betrayer and more betraying. But it's interesting. I mean, these are classical kind of poems, and it's difficult to really, because a lot of the things in them sometimes they're difficult to relate to. But I will share one or two lines from this, and I love the way, once again, he was in trouble, this Nabigha Dhubyani, and he runs away to Damascus in his time after he's got into a bit of trouble and so on. But he's addressing his daughter, and her name was actually Umama, I believe, but he kind of addresses her as Umayma, and that's a tasghir, it's a diminutive, it's an endearing kind of way. He says, Kilini li hammin ya Umaymata nasibi وَلَيْلٍ أُقَاسِيهِ بَطِيعِ الْكَوَاكِبِ. Allah. Like he says, leave me to my kind of sorrows, like leave me to my kind of worries. Ya Umaymata nasibi. Or, like here he's saying, oh Umayma, leave me to my tiring, worrisome troubles, Ya Umayma. And nasib here most likely is a sifa to ham. Okay. He says, وَلَيْلٍ أُقَاسِيهِ بَطِيءِ الْكَوَاكِبِ. And what a night that I endure. That the stars move by so slowly. Like, meaning that it's such a lengthy night because of my worries. Because of the worries he's facing. But I just love the way he addresses his daughter, his young daughter, by it. And just bringing up a kind of a powerful imagery, really. And this has the famous line in it, by the way, which is also quoted often in Islamic. In fact, it's even in Sahih al-Bukhari, that he says about these people trying to praise them, that وَلَا عَيْبَ فِيهِمْ غَيْرَ أَنَّ سِيُوفَهُمُ بِهِنَّ فُلُولٌ مِنْ قِرَاعِ الْكَتَائِبِ. That he says that there is no blemish in these people. You can't fault these people, except that their swords had been so often dented by warfare. Allah. And that's what they call in balagha that al-madah alladhi yushbihu dham, that it seems like you're dissing a person, but you're actually praising him. So it's to say that, you know, that the only thing bad about this guy, the only thing, you know, terrible about him is he has uncontrollable courage, for example. Now that's the style. And it is, I gotta say, this is one of the most kind of powerful qasidas of his. And he speaks about, and there's wisdom in these things as well. And he says that these people, he's speaking about a people, he says, وَلَا يَحْسَبُونَ الْخَيْرَ لَا شَرَّ بَعْدَهُ وَلَا يَحْسَبُونَ الشَّرَّ ضَرْبَةَ لَازِبِ. That these are people who do not, when they see like good times, they do not imagine that these things are perpetual, that there will be no difficulties after them. Neither do they think that difficulties are something that will forever stick. That such is life, in other words. And then he kind of gifts his qasida. He says, حَبَوْتُ بِهَا غَسَّانَ إِذْ كُنْتُ لَاحِقًا بِقَوْمِي وَإِذْ أَعْيَتْ عَلَيَّ مَذَاهِبِ. And this, and he says that, you know, I gift this to Ghassan, his tribe, and he says, when I'm trying to reach them and I realize like all other paths have kind of seized up against me. But this is, poetry, people, has amazing wisdom in it. That's all I'd say. I'd say definitely Urdu poetry, if not. Urdu poetry, you can't go wrong, people. You can't go wrong. Right, somebody has asked, do you think Adam had ape ancestry? What your view according to... You see, first of all, nobody says that Adam alayhi salam or hominins per se are from monkeys. Nobody says that. That's a very old, outdated kind of theory. What science shows is that hominins, I don't think anybody can disagree that hominins, or whether it's you've got the other gorillan, panin, that basically all of these different primates had a common ancestor. Not that they came from one another. Nobody today in science or genetics claims that they came from one another, but they had a common ancestor. Okay, so that's important to make that differentiation. It's important to understand that, look, as far as my understanding is that the Quran teaches us that وَجَعَلْنَا مِنَ الْمَاءِ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ حَيٍّ, that everything, that all life had a common source. So we all began from a common factor. That is the Quran saying that. So I believe everything on earth, all life, okay, so life with a capital L is all related. So we humans are related to trees, to plants, to the birds, to creatures. We are all related. Now the question comes that Adam alayhi salam did, you see, because that is a clear verse of the Quran, that all life is related. That is a verse of the Quran, people, that Allah says all life has been created from a common source. Anybody going against that is going against a clear verse of the Quran. Then the question comes, well, what about Adam? Is Adam alayhi salam was he miraculously some kind of intervention? So here you have a difference of opinion amongst certain scholars. Now, some scholars will feel they believe in a creationist, biblical... They've been very influenced by Christian theology. They think, like, for example, nothing existed, no life, nothing, that we're not related, which I think is against the Quran. but one day God just said be, and there were just chickens running around, and the next day there were elephants, and the next day there were dinosaurs, and I mean I don't even know what they think about the dinosaurs, but a lot of them probably think dinosaurs didn't exist, sorry, in the past. And then one day there was just Adam, and this just happened in 6 days. So that's the Christian kind of, the hard Bible thumping Christians, and some Muslims have taken that ridiculous view. Those Muslims who have taken that have been foolishly and naively misled. These people, more than anything, need to go to their doctor and ask for psychiatric intervention, please. Right, so these people I consider, because these people are just, these Christians, Muslims, everybody are just an embarrassment to to the prefrontal cortex of insan. So our entire prefrontal cortex, these people are just an embarrassment to that. So they're still operating at a reptile kind of reptilian brain. So put these people aside. The other ulama have kind of disagreed. So they've said, well, some of them have felt that Adam alayhi salam, so everybody, you see, to deny today that we are related genetically is absurd in my understanding, because it is factual. We know this today through genetics, right? So, and our DNA is related. It is linked. People, that's to deny that is just either just incredibly naive or it's stupid. So, however, the question of Adam remains. That was Adam alayhi salam a miraculous intervention? So did God along the way decide to just intervene miraculously, break the laws and say, well, something's, I'm just going to create him out of something. And there you go. Some ulama held that view. So people like Muhammad Abdul and Syed Riza and these people, they generally held that understanding, and other people did as well. That there was, that although we are all related, but Allah created Adam miraculously, but created him in a way that he maintained the relativeness of all life on earth. That is what some people feel. Other ulama, like that continue to investigate this up until our recent times as well, like Dr. Abdul Sabur Shaheen and others with him, have felt that no, the Quran actually seems to highlight that there is nothing anti-Islam or anti-Quran in saying that there was evolution, that Adam too evolved, but through the miracle of God. So the cognitive revolution that he had was, and making him unique, his genetic, because he began a kind of unique species, that this was the divine intervention. So to them they felt that, and the verses that they used are also verses of the Quran. So those people who used the first clause said that Allah said things like that I created Adam myself with my 2 hands and things like this. Okay, so they use these verses to say, well, Allah broke the chain in a miraculous way, but maintained the same material and DNA that was coming from the prior species. These people said, well, like Abdul Sabur Shaheen and others said, well, no, because first of all, let's take a look at the other verses of the Quran. The other verses suggest, like Allah speaks, that we have created insan min sulalatin min teen, that we've created him from some kind of a mishmash, from a clayey, gooey kind of substance. And then Allah says in that verse that we created insan from this, he then says, ثُمَّ جَعَلْنَاهُ فِي قَرَارٍ مَكِينٍ. Then we placed, that we've خلقنا الإنسان, then من ثم جعلنا النطفة في قرار مكين. Then we placed this drop of sperm in a qararin makin, in a firm kind of resolute place, a positioning. Which, now, you see, the interesting thing is when you look at the tafsir of these ayat, you will find that a lot of the ulama will begin by saying that this verse is talking about Adam alayhi salam, including people like, if you look at the tafsir of Ibn Jarir al-Tabari and others, they will say that this is actually speaking about Adam alayhi salam. However, when it comes to that part that addresses, when it comes to that part about saying him being placed in a womb, many of them say, well, this part is talking about insan in general, and is no longer talking about Adam. Right? Now, right. Sorry, just one moment. Right, so and some ulama said here that no, that this was still speaking about Adam, but Allah created, because He created him from this thing, He placed him in an artificial womb-like structure to develop. So some ulama have said that. Now, you see, now the verse is this. Let me read out the verse for you. Allah says, this is we're looking at Surah Mu'minun. So we're going to verse 12. Allah says, وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ مِنْ سُلَالَةٍ مِنْ طِينٍ. That we have created insan min sulalatin min teen. That from this gooey kind of whatever, this mishmash from teen, a clayish kind of, clay-esque kind of substance, which people would say today is DNA. Now, ثُمَّ جَعَلْنَا النُّطْفَةَ فِي قَرَارٍ مَكِينٍ. Sorry, ثُمَّ جَعَلْنَاهُ نُطْفَةً فِي قَرَارٍ مَكِينٍ. Then we made him into a nutfa, a drop in a firm place. Now, many ulama here say, okay, this verse, the first verse, they pretty much, the majority of them all say is speaking about Adam alayhi salam. Now this, which is just following on, because it's still following on with the same discourse. So many of them here will say, oh no, so this is now just speaking about humans in general, not about Adam. But others said it is still speaking about Adam, but he was placed in this artificial womb-like structure. So the question here is, these ulama, coming back to this batch of ulama that said there was evolution, they said, well, what difference does it, why place Adam in a artificial womb when there were already wombs around? That women already had wombs. Like, what is the need for an artificial womb structure? Why not just place him? Why shouldn't he just be in a regular womb? But the fact, his genetic mutation that it took place meant he would be entirely different and miraculous. So these people took that understanding and they said, well, those verses about Allah creating him with his hands, we don't believe that literally anyway, because we don't believe God has two hands and things like this. This is just symbolic speech to show that Allah created Adam in a meticulous manner. So now that is the two kind of variations, the two strands we have within our understanding of looking at evolution. I feel whichever one you take is fine. Okay, so if you want to settle with that okay, that generally, I think to deny evolution as a whole is ridiculous, because it is against science, it is against facts, genetic, it is against DNA, and it is embarrassing. But to say that, well, Adam alayhi salam was a miracle is what some people have taken. So they've accepted evolution but said Adam was a miracle, as Muhammad Abdu and others did. And those who say, well, no, he too was part of that process, but the miracle was the kind of cognitive revolution, the genetic and kind of reformation that was taking place. That was the miracle. And rather than him being placed in an artificial womb, as the verse of the Quran seems to suggest, that he was placed in a womb structure, then why could that womb not be why could that womb not just be a womb that was already around? Why must it be a separate womb? So this is the general understanding. These are the two. There is a third camp as well of ulama that have said things like that Adam in the Quran is symbolic about an entire species. I mean, these are all part of the structure of what is available. Although I don't find myself too inclined to that, because I think DNA does show that we do go back to a single kind of source. So I would say whatever you find yourself comfortable with is permissible to go with. Okay, I hope that helps. Are the hadith correct regarding the taking of the soul? I'm not sure what that means and what hadith they are referring to. Do you have to follow a sect in Islam? Not at all. I don't follow a sect at all, and I advise everybody not to follow any sect within Islam. Obviously, I'm part of mainstream Sunni Islam, and that's generally what I would advocate for, mainstream Sunni Islam. That is what my views are. But that said, I do not agree with these sects per se, that you have the Wahhabis, the Deobandis, the Brelvis, the whatever they are, these different kind of sects. I don't follow any. I'll take the good from anybody. Okay. So, what is the major difference between Ahl Sunnah and Mu'tazila? It's a good question. The major difference, and I've answered this on so many occasions, the major differences were political, and they were of an extremist nature. So the Mu'tazila were extremists who believed that if you committed a sin, you were no longer a Muslim. You see, all the early sects in Islam, people take note of this, please. All the early sects in Islam were, the divisions and break-offs were political. You must, whether you want to accept that or not, that is the truth. They were all political. I know generally the Shia don't necessarily view it like this, but to me, even the Sunni Shia split really is just political. Okay, it's one of politics. The Khawarij break-off was political. Was about, and they declared people kafir. But why were they so interested in declaring people kafir? Because of the political status quo. They said anybody who commits a sin, any sin, is a kafir. The Mu'tazila said anybody who commits a major sin is no longer a Muslim, although they refused to put them in a kafir state and created a purgatory state, a manzila bain al-manzilatayn, this kind of limbo state that you're in. And they based this on hadith. And this is why. And why were they doing this? Because it meant the rulers in their time were not Muslim. Although they weren't full-on kafir, but they weren't Muslim. And this once again justifies your rebellion and sedition, and that you can rise against the state. So believe me when I tell you, all the entire early sects in Islam were all to do with politics, and mainly to do with rising against the state. Whatever that, whether it was good or bad or whatever, but that's what they were all about. They weren't really about these other kind of beliefs and stuff like that. I mean, they became about that later on, but they weren't necessarily about that. Nike is not haram, no. Of course it isn't. So, people, what is going on? What else did I say I was going to cover? Right, okay, some of these hadith, let's cover them. Right, I've been asked a question invoking angels and saints to ward off witchcraft and to ward off jinn, demonic possessions. First of all, there are no such things as demonic possessions, people, and witchcraft does not exist. So, look, these things are what we call folkloric Islam or folkloric religion, folklore. People believe this stuff regardless of being Muslim or non-Muslim. You're going to get this, especially in third world countries, people kind of believing in stuff like wizardry and witchcraft and demons, and but you know, and they're going to justify it through Islam as well. Spook religion, yeah. None of this stuff has any validity. You know, jinns don't possess you, people don't do magic on you. This kind of stuff doesn't happen. You can believe it. People are going to still do it. It doesn't make it true, no. It is quite embarrassing. But, yeah. It definitely is embarrassing, but, yeah, but that's that, man. That's that. I wouldn't definitely advise it. I would avoid anything with superstition as far as I'm concerned. Okay. And, yeah, you're right. It only happens. You're right, Muhammad Khalid, or is that Ustad Muhammad Khalid? Good to see you online. That it only seems to affect people who believe in it, because that's what it does. You believe in this stuff and it impacts you psychologically. Seriously, our perception impacts us, people, massively. You know, on that note, I want to share something. This last week, you know, people, I saw this thing. Now, Instagram is something that, although I do use, I need to use it more, I guess, but I'm not really too much into that world of, that kind of Kodak world of just images and stuff. But I do love some of the memes on there. They really have me in stitches. And so, people send me memes. So somebody sent me a meme. Right, now this is some serious stuff I want to share with you. Right, so somebody sent me a meme, and so it was for some page that had, God knows, you know, a huge amount of following, like these meme pages and these kind of pages do. And it was something about these street videos or street vlogs and stuff like this. So I go on there. The meme was, I can't remember the meme. It was quite funny, but so I ended up checking out the other stuff on this page, which has got tons, you know, thousands and thousands of, tens and thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands of followers. Now, it was mainly a UK page, and it was about street kind of street vlogs or street videos, and wallahi, and the nature of social media, I mean, this is on a separate note, is that it just glues you, doesn't it? You're glued to the, you know, like you can sit down sometimes and go through something, and an hour has gone by, and 2 hours have gone by. I mean, and you're like, damn, and you haven't really done any. I mean, don't get me wrong, it has some very good, useful sides to it, but it's, wow. And so I went through some of these kind of posts, these video clips that were on this page, and they were all about the UK, and it was about mainly young people. Wallahi, I was really disturbed by, I'm not lying when I say I'm not lying when I say this. It's not that I'm not, but all the videos were all about kind of people trying to be gangster. Yeah. And boys and girls alike, and young people, but mainly ethnic minorities. So mainly it'll be like Asian, blacks, black youth, Asian youth, Arabs, Somali youth. Like, it's mainly like London. So it was all these young people, non-Muslim, I mean Muslim, non-Muslim, whatever. It wasn't a Muslim thing. But they were all just short clips and snaps or whatever on this Instagram page where these young kids were just like kind of wielding around like Rambo knives. And just kind of like trying to say like, come test my gangster, and you know that you know, and you get glued as you do. And you're kind of like watching one thing and you're watching another thing and you're watching, and it was all over these different gangs, and and there were like fights going on and like beating up some people, or motorbikes, and wielding these blades and these kind of Rambo knives, you know, those Rambo big blades, and just kind of like, and these kind of, I don't know what they call these, I think, do they call them drills or something, these new kind of grimes or kind of rap music that they have on YouTube, and just all gangster kind of, but it was really dark, incredibly, wallahi, like the nature of social media is you get glued to anything. So I was glued to this for a while, watching so many of these clips, and it devastated me. Listen to me. I just felt for a moment, whoa, like, damn, man, like, that must be the world of certain people. Like, that must be their world. Like, it is horrible, man. It's a horrible, horrible place. Like, they were just, you know, just kids. Like, I mean, when I say kids, I mean maybe late teens or teenagers, or maybe people at most in the early 20s, just chasing people, or people threatening people with knives, or people just trying to live up to that hype and masked up, and wallahi, just watching it made me think that, you see, the nature of social media is we have a very, you see, social media runs on on algorithms that have kind of it brings click according kind of traffic your way. So whatever you click on, it will bring traffic that resonates of that to you. So in a way, what we end up doing is creating a kind of bubble. Now, can you imagine the young people that obviously they follow these kind of pages, and then they must just follow more pages like these pages, and then before they know it, they must just watch hours and hours of just young people just living that horrible, wallahi, devastating lifestyle, which has no dignity. But then they must think that that is the world. Like, I had to put that down after so long, thinking, oh, is that, because that's not my, like, is that the world for people? And it's not just negativity, but it's a horrible, like a very pessimistic, gritty, dangerous negativity. Because if you're watching that, then you're probably thinking everybody's carrying knives and I need to carry a knife, or, you know, because that becomes your bubble. Like, if all you're seeing is stuff like, and these people had so many followers and so many, wallahi, I was just disturbed. I'm being honest with you, I was disturbed watching it, and I was just thinking, damn, man, I just hope that young people can somehow, you know, if young people are watching this, my advice to you, seriously, as, you know, as you can, you know, as an elder person to you, as a brother, as a friend, as a, you know, as somebody, whatever, that is that, look, distance yourselves from these kind of platforms. Watch things, I mean, by all means, I mean, things that are funny, but things that have a positive message, because that is not the world. That may be a very dark corner. You see, like every beautiful landscape will have some corner of darkness. It has that. That's just the nature of any landscape. But do not mistake that dark corner as the landscape. That make sure you surround yourself with positivity, seriously, because it is very dangerous to become trapped within a bubble and think that that is the whole world around you, because it, yeah, subhanallah, man. So anybody that's got teenage children, I really feel for you, and it is an incredible job. Just raising children. If you've got younger siblings who are teenagers, I would look out for them. I would ensure that they're not kind of drowning or engrossed in that kind of bubble, because that is the nature of the clickbait kind of traffic, that algorithms that are out there. So people, that was a bit of a serious message. Please do kind of, and if you yourself are similar things, maybe not gritty like that, but if you've become a victim of your whole bubble, whether it's people or your virtual bubble is just negative, start breaking away from it, please. Start breaking away from it. That is my advice. Right, so let's move on back to, is the hadith about Ibn Sayyad authentic? No, it isn't. Let's move back to some. All hadith, most hadith regarding the Dajjal and those kind of things are all kind of made up events. Somebody has asked, why are you punished in the grave before Judgment Day? I mean, are you punished in the grave before Judgment Day? This is something I would feel that although that is the view that most people hold, but there is equally the other understanding that you're not. And I would say that all of these things are permissible to whichever way you're inclined. It doesn't seem to make too much sense when you think about it, because how can there be judgment before the day of judgment, before reckoning? Salihah has said, I am a victim of nursery rhymes. Well, that's not that bad, actually. Let's take some questions, people, and then we'll move on. Let's wrap this up. Go to my drink, my go-to. Let's quickly wrap. Oh right, there was supposed to be some of the hadith. In fact, I've got an amazing paradox to cover as well. Tuti has asked, Mufti Abu Layth, did you travel to Syria before the war? Hell yeah, I traveled to Syria way before the war. I traveled to Syria in the 90s and in the early 2000s. It was a beautiful place, although I hated the kind of regime presence of the military everywhere. But it was an amazing, peaceful place. I totally couldn't get used to their food. You know, if you're a desi food just rocks, man. You know, you can't beat desi food. I don't know, this is obviously just, you know, I'm pure conditioning, but biryani and things like this, you can't beat it, man. I'm just honest, like that's, in fact, now thinking about that, I'm just getting hungry. After this, I've got some biryani waiting for me. So first of all, my drink, Sue mein kada na jate to kuch aur baat hoti. People, let me tell you about a little poem to cheer you guys up. The guy says that if you had, this is the famous poet Hashar Kashmiri. Hashar Kashmiri is from Kashmir. Alright, people, alright. From Kashmir. So he said, Sue mein kada na jate to kuch aur baat hoti. That if you'd not gone towards the pub, to the wine house to drink, then it would have been something else. That's what he says. वो अगर निगाह से पिलाते तो कुछ और बात होती. That had of she given me to drink from her eyes, then it would have been something else. That's what he says. And this is an amazing poem that he has, people. It has some amazing lines in there. He says, Go Hawaii Gulistan ne mere dil ki laaj rakh li. वो खुद निकाब उठाते तो कुछ और बात होती. He says that see, basically, there's this woman who he's obviously admiring, whoever she is. So she's walking with a niqab, and the wind blows off her niqab. So it kind of... So obviously he gets to see her face. So he's like wowed by that. So he says that, Go Hawaye Gulistan ne mere dil ki laaj rakh li. So even though the wind of the park, the wind kind of came and it blew off her thing, that it kept, like it fulfilled my wish for me. But he says that wo niqab khud uthate, but had of she removed the niqab herself, then that would have been something else. So this is the kind of what is he has some amazing lines in that poem. He goes on to say, Ye khule khule gesu. He says, Ye khule khule gesu inhe lakh tum savaro. Something like along these lines. He says that this kind of, this hair that you have, that even if you kind of fix it up so much, so many times, mere haath se savarte to kuch aur baat hoti, that had of I with my hands fixed them, then it would have been something else. But he has a done, you know, like poets, the way they finish a poem is often the don feature, and he has this line at the end of it where he says, and this is actually interesting about institutionalized religion as well. He says, Go haram ke raste se wo khuda go haram se ras go. This is one that I actually read a while back. He says that Go haram ke raste se wo pahunch ge khuda tak. That I give, he says, although go haram ke raste se wo pahunch ge khuda tak, teri reh guzar se jate to kuch aur baat hoti. He says that I admit that eventually via the haram, via Makkah, he eventually reached God. So he did get to God, he did connect with him via the haram. But had have he taken your street to connect to God, then that would have been something else. That is, people, a Don poet, Hashar Kashmiri. So do check him out. But let's come to some of these people. Right, we've actually... What I'm going to do is... Alright, in fact, let's squeeze this in. Right, two things. I've been asked the question, was the Prophet poisoned before his death? Now, let me bring the hadith, and then I'm going to also show you why hadith dogmatism is problematic, and present to you something which I call the War-Wager Hadith paradox. So what is that about? People, stay tuned. Stay tuned. That's what I'm talking about. So first of all, this hadith. So right now, there is a notion, people, that the Prophet was poisoned and died as a result of this poison. Now, many ex-Muslims and atheists and Islamophobes have taken it to social media saying that, look, the Prophet died a humiliating death. The Prophet of Islam having been poisoned, and this hadith is in Bukhari and Muslim and Abu Dawood and Darmi and Musnad of Ahmad and all these hadith books. So what is this hadith about? So there's a hadith, and what I'll do is take the main one, which is in Sahih Bukhari, and it does have, it resonates in Abu Dawood as well, and the Sunnah of Darmi, and the Musnad of Ahmad. Now the hadith states that the Prophet said in his in his dying illness that Ya Aisha, oh Aisha, ma azalu ajid alam at-ta'am, I continue to find, or I still feel the pain of the food, alladhi akaltu bi Khaybar, that the food that I ate in Khaybar, which was the poisoned food that I ate in Khaybar. فهذا أوان وجدت انقطاع أبهري من ذلك السم. So this is the time in which that poison is cutting my aorta, the arteries to my heart. Now, so basically what the Prophet is saying in this hadith, if this hadith be true, which it isn't, but I'm just going to say, if this hadith be true, the Prophet is saying, I at this stage am finding that poison finally killing me. The poison which we ate back in Khaybar 3 years prior to this incident. Now this hadith is in Bukhari, it is in Abu Dawood, it's in Darmi, and there's variations to this story which are in Sahih Muslim and in other books. Now first of all, this is nonsense. Okay. The Prophet did not die of poisoning. I don't know which genius along the way got this idea to somehow think, I know why, that it would be awesome if the Prophet was not only a prophet but also a martyr. I mean, I don't know at what stage this incident got fabricated or people recreated this event, but they did. This hadith or this story is massively contradictory. I will show the contradiction and then also show from the chain perspective why it is unacceptable. So let's take a look at the chain first. Taking the strongest, which is Sahih Bukhari, and it has its chain in Darmi and Abu Dawood and Musnad of Ahmad. So in Sahih Bukhari, hadith number 4428 is narrated from Yunus, from Zuhri, who says, قال عروة قالت عائشة, that Aisha said, يا عائشة ما أزال أجد ألم الطعام الذي أكلت بخيبر, that I still continue to find this poison from that food. Now Yunus, the problem with Yunus right here, Al-Aili, is that Abu Zur'a has transmitted about him that when he would not transmit from something that was written, it was as though he had nothing. He was not a scholar, a master of hadith. He was not a hafidh. ليس بالحافظ. He says, إذا أخذ من حفظه لم يكن عنده شيء. If he was trying to narrate from memory, he was unreliable. Okay. Imam Ahmad states about him, لم يكن يعرف الحديث. He was not somebody that even knew hadith. And he mentions that يشتبه عليه hadith al-Zuhri, that he would often mix up hadith. Like sometimes he would be transmitting one hadith from somebody over here, one from somebody over here, and he would put parts of it with him and parts of it with him. So Yunus al-Aili, there are already huge problems with him. Waqi' transmits about him, رَأَيْتُ Yunus وَكَانَ سَيِّئَ الْحِفْظِ. He says, I saw Yunus and he was terrible in his memory. Ibn Sa'ad, the famous Ibn Sa'ad, says about him that لَيْسَ بِالْحُجَّةِ, he is not an evidence. And he says, رُبَّمَا جَاءَ بِالشَّيْءِ الْمُنْكَرِ, and sometimes he brings some hadith that are unacceptable. Okay. Second person in the chain is Zuhri. And Zuhri here is not saying he heard, and he is a mudallis. Ibn Hajar has put him from the Tabaqatul Thalitha in his Mudallisin book. Al-Ala'i considers him to be a mudallis. Ad-Darqutni considers him to be a mudallis. Unacceptable. The chain is not connected. He himself, Urwa, who Al-Hakim also mentions that some of his narrations he also kind of tries to cover up sometimes because he hasn't heard them directly. Some of his narrations he hears through his brother, Abdullah. And Darqutni highlights that there's problems sometimes with Urwa, as does Nasa'i. Urwa here himself does not say, I heard. He just says, قالت Aisha. Aisha said. So as you can see, this chain is problematic. there is a varying chain bringing the same hadith in Abu Dawud, and that chain has the person in it, Muhammad ibn Amr al-Ansari, who Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Qattan says problematizes as a problematic narrator, as does Imam Malik, as does Yahya ibn Ma'in. Even Ibn Hajar says that although he's a truthful person, but he makes mistakes. And Ibn Sa'ad said, Yustad'af, he's considered weak as well. Right now, and then there's a narration in Musnad of Ahmad. Once again, it comes from Zuhri with An'ana, so it's unacceptable. Right now, you'll find that with most of the chains. But now let's go to the content of this hadith. The problem with the content of this hadith, people, is this is the incident that after the Battle of Khaybar, which you know was it was a very difficult kind of battle, the siege, and the whole kind of bloodshed, everything, people are aware of that. Now, after that, according to this incident, the Prophet was invited by a Jewish woman to eat some food. So he goes along, and in this hadith, which is in Abu Dawud, him and the companion and other companions go to eat this food. Amongst them, Bishr ibn al-Bara, radiyallahu anhu. Now they sit to eat, and whilst they're eating, the angel Jibreel alayhi salam tells the Prophet that don't eat it, there's poison in it. So the Prophet refrains and says, hey, stop people, stop eating it. But Bishr radiyallahu anh has already eaten it. Therefore, Bishr dies. Or in some narrations he dies there, in some narrations he dies within a few days. Now, when he dies, then once again the narrations disagree. Some say when he dies, then the Prophet asks the old lady. Some say no, he asks the old lady there and then, why did you poison us? And she says, well, because if you're a prophet, you're going to find out anyway, weren't you? So then the Prophet responds. She says, well, if you weren't a prophet, I would have killed you for what happened in Khaybar. If you were a prophet, well, you ought to find out anyway. And the Prophet in Sahih Muslim's narration says, مَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيُسَلِّطَكِ عَلَى ذَلِكَ, that Allah would not let you carry out something like that. Now check this out. He will not let you poison me. This is that same hadith. What is it saying in Bukhari? Oh, I'm finding that poison is now killing off my arteries. It's cutting off my arteries, my aorta. This is already a contradiction. The fact that Bishr ibn Barra radiyallahu anh dies from that poison. How can that poison take 3 years when Bishr has already died from it? So Bishr eats it and he's dead, and the other person eats it and hey, lo and behold, 3 years later he dies. That's not how that kind of poison can work. So somebody had asked, can this be equivalent to toxic radiation? No, it can't. This is not radiation. This is poison. Okay, the person who ate it, the people who ate it, Bishr allegedly, this whole incident is fabricated, but according to this story, Bishr dies there and then, or within a few hours, or at most a few days, he dies. That's in the narration, that's in Abu Dawud, that's in the other texts. So if he dies, how can other people or the Prophet take years, up to 3 years to die? That is nonsensical. The other thing is, according to the same hadith in Sahih Muslim, the Prophet said to the old lady, مَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيُسَلِّطَكَ عَلَى ذَلِكَ. Allah would not let you get away with something like that. He would not empower you to do something like that. Okay. So that contradicts massively. This is a huge problem. You can't accept this. The other thing is that this goes to show that, you see, Allah said in the Quran that Ya ayyuhan nabi balligh ma unzila ilayk, that, O messenger of God, that stand up with the message. Allah will protect you. And here evidently Allah has not then protected him. That Allah says that we will na'simuka minan nas, we will protect you from people, but evidently he didn't, because he was poisoned and he died. So this, and then that's actually a good verse as well, that Allah mentions, as Ustad Khalid has said, وَلَوْ تَقَوَّلَ عَلَيْنَا بَعْضَ الْأَقَاوِيلِ لَأَخَذْنَا مِنْهُ بِالْيَمِينِ وَلَقَطَعْنَا. That Allah mentions that, look, if the Prophet had been making up verses against us, we would have seized him and we would have cut his aorta, and that we would have cut him from his arteries, as in that would have been finished. Now the wording of this hadith, although using different words, is referring to the same kind of phenomenon of, I feel my arteries or aorta is being cut off. So non-Muslims could then use that to show, well, maybe the Prophet was making things up, because the Quran said that وَلَوْ تَقَوَّلَ عَلَيْنَا بَعْضَ الْأَقَاوِيلِ, if he had made up certain verses against us, this is the kind of death that God would have given him. He would have cut off his aorta and arteries as a punishment, as the Quran states. Now, you see, this is an humiliating kind of response. This is not dignifying our Prophet, this is humiliating him. Not to mention the fact that then they say, well, the Prophet said, oh, here's a hadith that whoever eats such and such dates can never be impacted by poison or by magic. And then, ironically, what are the two things they say the Prophet was impacted by? Magic and poison. I mean, this is ridiculous. This is an insult to our Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is why, people, we need to stop giving these khabru ahad primacy above the Quran. We need to learn from the examples of Imam Malik, Imam Abu Hanifa, that when a hadith comes that contradicts the overall message of the Quran, you need to put it aside. Look, when Imam Malik, when the hadith came to him, that the dog, this is how, when a dog licks your bowl and you must wash it, and he said, look, I accept that it has come with a solid chain. I accept that. He said, but the Quran teaches us something different. فَلَا نَدْرِ مَا حَقِيقَةُ. We don't know what this hadith is on about. We're going to put it aside. We're not going to accept it. It's problematic. It cannot be a true hadith. And he said, by accepting these one-on-one, لَيَنْزِعُ الدِّينَ مِنْ بَيْنِ يَدَيْهِ. The deen will be snatched from in front of you. Al Aidan has asked, what if the poison was delayed as a miracle? As a miracle of what? Of humiliation? To humiliate the Prophet? Because the Quran seems to suggest that this is the kind of death you will get if you lie against God. And lo and behold, that's what these people are saying is the kind of death the Prophet suffered. So once again, you see, you can't have it. And Bishr ibn Bara radiallahu an is the companion. Right, so, sorry, just one moment, just reading this. And Bishr ibn Bara radiallahu an is the companion who dies there and then, according to this incident. So that is really important. So this is why, because the reason I'm saying this, people, so Surah Al-Haqqa, verse, you've got 44, going into 45 and 46, shows this, that look, Tanzila min Rabbil Alameen, that the Quran, وَلَوْ تَقَوَّلَ عَلَيْنَا بَعْضَ الْأَقَاوِيلِ, had of the Prophet made up the Quran, لَأَخَذْنَا مِنْهُ بِالْيَمِينِ, that we would have seized him, ثُمَّ لَقَطَعْنَا مِنْهُ الْوَتِينَ, then we would have cut off his supply. Now, to say that he died in a way which he had his kind of aorta and arteries cut off, as is the description of the Prophet himself saying, I'm feeling this, in reverse engineering can almost make this verse apply to him. So it's a humiliation. So it's saying inadvertently that the Prophet was humiliated. And that is unacceptable. Let alone the fact that the story is ridiculous. And the fact that, look, in all honesty, if you took this incident to be true, let's just investigate it. So the Prophet is there, the angel comes to teach the Prophet that, hey, there's poison in that food. But what, they can't do it fast enough to save the life of Bishr ibn Bara? What, the angel can't come fast enough? Like what, God? I mean, what is going, since the angel's going to come anyway, Since you're going to break all the laws of nature and have intervention anyway to save all, because in the same hadith the Prophet said, raise your hands from the food, irfa'u aydiyakum, don't eat the food, don't eat the food. But Bishr ibn al-Bara had eaten it, so he died. So the Prophet failed in saving all his companions, and the angel Jibreel alayhi salam, what an atheist could argue that, well, okay, he saved all of these, but he failed in saving one person. I mean, why not just come a bit quicker, since you're going to come anyway? So, I mean, you see, because either the angel is not going to come, or he is going to come. If he is going to come, why is he coming to save the people from this poison, but, well, one person died? So that's still a failure. Okay, you could say that there's some success, there's relatively, okay, saved all these people, but he failed on one companion. So it's still an insult. And then the Prophet being poisoned is an insult. And this is how the Prophet dies, by suffering with that poison and dying. What a ridiculous statement. This hadith is a false hadith. The chain is unacceptable. As I mentioned, it has these people like Zuhri, it has An'ana, it's unacceptable, Yunus is critiqued, and all these things and these other rawat, and then it clashes with the Quran, with the teaching of the Quran, and general understanding of Islam. Okay. So people, with that, I want to take us to, somebody said that's called taqdeer, that's called destiny. No, it isn't called destiny. That's called that's just simply called humiliation. To say that the Jews poisoned our Prophet and he died as a consequence of that is actually, what you don't realize is you're insulting Islam, you're insulting God, and you're insulting our Prophet. Because our Prophet did not die because somebody poisoned, because that's like saying, well, really the Prophet ought to have lived on, but the Jews kind of finished him off. I mean, what a ridiculous thing to say. So, people, please just think sometimes what you're actually saying. Now, I want to kind of highlight here. I want to present something, people. This is called what I've termed the War-Wager Hadith paradox. Okay. Now, what is this hadith paradox, and why does this show that hadith dogmatism is kind of unacceptable? Because through this I aim to kind of show you that people who are trying to assert hadith dogmatism, the reason they're doing it is because they have this loyalty to the isnad concept. That the chain, everything is about the chain, and they've gone away from the actual teachings of people like Imam Malik in saying, look, people will at times blag the chain as well. They will at times kind of pull one over you with the chain. Never let go of your faculty of reason and the holistic understanding of Islam, Imam Malik said, and Imam Abu Hanifa. But we do have people that are hadith dogmatists. They don't care about whatever the hadith has to say. As long as we have a chain that is acceptable, they will compromise everything. So I want to show you a fine example that is a paradox, you see, and why it's a paradox I'll explain. See, there is a hadith, a very famous hadith that is in several books of hadith, in Sahihain, in Bukhari, in Muslim, it's in Abu Dawood, it's in Nasa'i, it's in the Musnad of Ahmad, it's in a few other books as well. And let me read this hadith to you, people. This hadith, the one I'm going to read, the wording is from Sahih Muslim. It's from Abu Hurairah radiyallahu an, and you've heard of this. And it is the hadith about waging war. The Prophet said, "Umirtu an uqatil an-nas hatta yashhadu." I have been commanded and instructed to fight people, fight mankind, until they testify, hatta yashhadu an la ilaha illallah, that there is no God except Allah, wa yu'minu bi, and they must have faith in me, believe in me, وَبِمَا جِئْتُ بِهِ, and believe in that which I have brought. فَإِذَا فَعَلُوا ذَلِكَ, if they do that, عَصَمُوا مِنِّي دِمَاءَهُمْ وَأَمْوَالَهُمْ إِلَّا بِحَقِّهَا وَحِسَابُهُمْ عَلَى اللَّهِ, then they have protected from me their wealth and their lives and their blood, except unless it is by an Islamic right, and their accountability is with their Lord. Now this hadith, I want to not strawman but steelman the argument of the hadith dogmatists, and amongst them people like you've got the Salafi Wahhabi scholar Abu Ishaq al-Huwaini, the Egyptian scholar who has detailed explanations of this. And let me let me steal man the best of what is to be said, including what he said. So this is what people are saying. He says that this hadith cannot be problematized. Why? Let me tell you. Because he says it's mutawatir to start off with. Okay, that this is as widespread, has multiplicity of chains, that it reaches the rank of the Quran in its strength and in its established nature, that it is as established and as conclusive as the Quran. So point one, he says up to 17 companions have transmitted it. Today I'm not going to critique, in this War-Wager Hadith paradox, I'm not going to critique the chains. I'm going to show you the paradox. 17 companions have transmitted it. Fine. This hadith has up to, let me tell you, it has up to 17 narrations. It has, multiple narrations in Bukhari and Muslim about, you've got 4, 5 in Bukhari, 4, 5 in Muslim. You've got up to 17 narrations in Sunan al-Nasa'i, in the book of Nasa'i. You've got 18 narrations in the Musnad of Ahmad. You've got in other books as well. So look at how many chains we have to prove this hadith. I want you to look at that. And then you've got people saying this is mutawatir. So what people are doing is they're bringing all these chains to support and to show that you cannot question this hadith. But then the paradox begins to unfold. Because you see, the thing is, now we say, okay, so what is the hadith? The hadith is that the Prophet said, I have been commanded to fight mankind until they believe in me. And until they believe in Allah and believe in me, then they have safeguarded their wealth and lives from me. Now, you see, first of all, including people like Huwaini and others will say that the scholars unanimously accept that we cannot fight a kafir for being a kafir. That just for a kafir simply being a kafir, like a non-Muslim simply being a non-Muslim, does not legitimize him being fought. That is impermissible. He himself says there's ijma' on this. Everybody says, in fact, they will say, all of these scholars regarding the verse of the Quran, La ikraha fid din, there is no compulsion in Islam, they will interpret it to mean that there is no compulsion in making people enter Islam. Okay, so they will say there's no compulsion in making people enter. So remember that. So they also agree, although they disagree with people like me and many other scholars that say that there's no compulsion at all in Islam. All the verses of the Quran, أَفَأَنْتَ تُكْرِهُ النَّاسَ تَيَكُونُ مُؤْمِنِينَ, will you force people until they believe? لَسْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ بِمُسَيْطِرٍ, you are not somebody imposed on people. لَا إِكْرَاهَ فِي الدِّينِ, there is no compulsion at all in matters of the deen. They will, although they don't agree altogether with us on these things, but they do agree on making people embrace Islam, there is no compulsion. They also agree that a kafir cannot be fought for simply being a kafir. Now, this is the paradox. You see, when you cement all these chains to bring this hadith, you're showing that this procedure is airtight, and now this is the chain. You see, this is the hadith. But then the hadith that you end up with, you can't accept. So what these scholars start to say, right, okay, so what Huwaini and other people say, let me steel man their arguments for you. They say, right, no, we don't say you can fight somebody, because they say this hadith, an-nas here, mankind, doesn't mean all of mankind, because it doesn't mean Muslims, you can fight Muslims or hypocrites or mushrikeen or non-Muslim. It meant you fought the mushrikeen or you fought the kuffar. Okay. Okay. So let's take that, fine. Let's take Huwaini or these people's understanding that you're fighting the mushrikeen. Okay. They say, and then what it means is there's a hadith of Buraidah radiallahu an that the Prophet, he sent his companions, and he sent Buraidah, and he sent these people, these other companions, and what he said is that when you go to these people, that's, by the way, it's not this hadith, but that's a different hadith, but he sent them and said, when you go to these people, present them these three, that you can either embrace Islam, if you accept that, then come with us, or you can stay where you are as Muslims, or you can pay the jizya. That these kind of three conditions were put forward to these people. So they say, fine, that's what the hadith is talking about. That you can, so basically we're going to fight, I can fight, I've been commanded to fight them, but in that hadith it applies. But what? No. Let's read this hadith. Let's read this hadith. This is in Sahih Muslim, and this hadith, remember, is mutawatir according to them. So the chains that could not make a single mistake in its representation. And it reads, I have been commanded to fight people, an-nas, mankind, until they testify and believe in Allah, and they believe in me. Believe, look, fight them until they believe. So there is coercion in entering the deen. Even though these people, everybody accepts there's no coercion in entering the deen. And they must believe in what I have brought, and then their lives and blood and wealth is safeguarded from me. Now the problem is, they say, no, but this content of this hadith, no, it doesn't. What it means is that, yes, we will fight them, but they have an option to pay jizya. You see, and that is the paradox, because what they've done is, it's a person who is building an airtight container, but the only way to build it is from the inside, and by doing it, they self-suffocate. Because the paradox in this example, people, is that, well, if the net result which we have is that the Prophet saying, I have been sent to fight mankind, and the only way they must believe to save their lives, if that net result is incomplete or insufficient, inadequate, lacking, misrepresenting, which they all agree it is, then that shows that the preservation practice is also lacking. You see, and that's the paradox. Because since this was supposed to be, remember, it's in Sunan al-Nisa'i, there's 17 narrations, in Musnad of Ahmad there's 18 narrations, there's 4 narrations or more in Bukhari, and 4 or more in Muslim, and it's mutawatir, and there's 17 companions, and so this is supposed to be on lock. This is supposed to be so tight. Yet it's supposed to be bulletproof, bomb-proof, it's supposed to be airtight. Yet the result we have is something that people are saying, no, nas here doesn't mean mankind. No, it can't mean mankind. Everybody seems to accept that to take this hadith literally, or not even literally, take this hadith with what it means, is unacceptable. In fact, that is exactly what ISIS did. You can't fault them. They took this hadith literally. Not literally, they just took the hadith. It's not even about literally. That is what the hadith reads as. Most Muslims never accept this hadith. Including the Salafiyah, including Huwayn, including all these people, do not take this hadith. They say, yes, but the hadith can't mean that because we don't accept. So if it lacks, because you think if something was so airtight, then surely what it preserved ought to have been a perfect preservation. Rather than saying, no, nas doesn't mean this doesn't mean this, no, but that one hadith of Buraidah or something is really what qualifies this whole mutawatir thing now. You see, and so what they did by solidifying all these chains, they created a paradox. Because now all these chains and mutawatir narrations ought to show, well, you ought to accept this. And since that's faulty, the paradox is that, well, so must the system be lacking. The system must be inconclusive and not mutawatir and faulty. And the only way you can let go of this is truly to also challenge that it is never conclusive. It is like, people, the old tale of catching the monkey by leaving some some kind of sweets or whatever the monkey was interested in a pot that the monkey would kind of put his hand in. And the only way that you see, and once it grabs the bait, the hand can't come out of the pot. But the only way it could come out is to release. But the monkey don't think like that. And that's what we've got here with hadith dogmatism. You see, this is the perfect example to show the paradox. That you've created such the War-Wager Hadith paradox demonstrates that the system is problematic, as is the result, because if the result is problematic, the system is problematic. If the system is sound, the result must be sound, which it isn't. You see, so with that, people, I present that to you. It's a bit like, you see, they're stupefied because whatever, if you ask them, their result is like, it's like the paradox, people. I don't know if you've come across the crocodile paradox, but the crocodile paradox is where the parent, it's the mother, has had in this story, in this story, the mother has had its child kidnapped by a crocodile. And the crocodile, one that has surprisingly reasoning faculties, decides to give a chance to the parent. And it says to the mother, I tell you what, if you can tell me what I'm going to do with this child, I will, if you get it correct, right, I will give you the child. You see, so the mother was about to say, well, I hope you'd let the child go. But then the mother realizes and says to the crocodile that you're going to eat the child. Like, you will not give the child. Thereby setting up a paradox. Because now whatever the crocodile's about to do backfires. Because if the crocodile was going to keep the child, it must therefore honor its word and give back the child. You see, so, and if it wasn't and it keeps the child, it's still stuck because do you get the paradox? You see, it's an amazing paradox because it totally stupefies the person. Because the crocodile in that situation is kind of stuck. That it thinks, well, you see, because if I now eat the child, well, that's what I was going to do. So I now, if I honor my word, ought to return the child. And if I were return the child because I was going to return the child anyway, then the child gets away anyway. So in both situations, the mother kind of wins. It's a win-win. So in the same way, when you ask these people, well, is this system airtight? Because if it is, why? Then the result is airtight. And you see, it becomes a kind of paradox. So I wanted to share that, and I've termed that the War-Wager Hadith paradox. And it just goes to demonstrate that this Hadith dogmatism, this Hadith cancelling out Quran perspective does not work. And we need to really resort to the method taught to us by the likes of Imam Malik, the Don of Ahlul Madinah, who said that, who taught us that, look, this one-on-one may snatch the deen from in front of you. Right, people, with that, I know it's... Wow, that is late. Guys, right, inshallah, got to wrap up with that. Inshallah, as always, you've been awesome. It is incredibly late here. I think I need to get some food, inshallah. So with that, gonna love you and leave you all, inshallah. May you all have an awesome week. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and keep you all forever smiling. Take very good care of yourselves, people, inshallah. Stay in touch, stay awesome, stay blessed. Over and out, people. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.